Before the sun came up, before the cattle stirred, a Scottish drover was already on his feet. These were the men who walked herds of black Highland cattle from the Highlands down through the glens and onto the drove road south toward English markets. Sleeping under the sky at Rannoch Moor, rising before first light, cooking over peat fires with what they carried on their backs. 25 of those breakfasts still exist, barely. Number one hasn't been made by a working family in over 60 years. Stay with me. Bros. No cooking, that is the point. A handful of raw oatmeal, cold water poured over, a pinch of salt, and you eat it as it swells. In the 1800s, a drover carried a leather pouch of oatmeal at his belt, costing less than a penny a day on the drove road from Crieff to Falkirk. Cold, thick, heavy. Your stomach wouldn't know it was empty until well past noon. My grandmother's cousin in Perthshire told me her father ate brose every morning of his working life, not because he had nothing else, because it worked. Crowdy with oat bannock. Crowdy is Scotland's oldest fresh cheese, sour milk warmed until it curdles, strained through cloth. Costs nothing if you have a cow. In the 1850s, crofting families in Rossshire pressed it into pots sealed with salt. A drover heading south through the Great Glen carried a week's worth wrapped in cloth. Eaten with an oat bannock baked on the griddle the night before, it gave fat, protein and carbohydrate before the Grampians. Crowdy still exists, just barely. The combination fed drovers for 3 centuries. Dripping bros. When cattle were slaughtered at the great trysts at Falkirk and Crieff, the rendered fat went into iron pots. Mixed with oatmeal and salt, hot dripping turned bros into something almost luxurious. Over 800 calories a bowl, enough fuel for 6 hours of hard walking across moorland. Ranch hands on the Scottish border estates in the 1890s ate dripping bros before the 5 a.m. muster. The dripping cost nothing, byproduct of the beef trade. Today we pour fat down the sink. Our grandfathers would have thought us mad. Kale bros. Kale grew on the windward side of every Scottish cottage. It didn't need much soil, it laughed at frost. And by February, when everything else was gone, kale was still standing. Boil a handful in the water left from a ham bone, stir in oatmeal until it thickens, and you have kale bros. Eaten in Aberdeenshire farm cottages since the 1700s, it was the standard breakfast on livestock farms from Angus to Caithness by 1900. Your nan would have known without being told. Curly kale has more iron per 100 grams than beef. Hairst bros. Hairst is the Scots word for harvest. The oatmeal was toasted first, held in a dry pan until it turned the colour of burnt caramel, then mixed with cold buttermilk and heather honey. What you get is what people now pay £3.50 for in a health food shop and call granola. In Angus and the Mearns in the 1870s, harvest hands were paid partly in meals, and Hairst bros was the standard offering at first light. Your great-grandmother had a pot of buttermilk in the larder every summer day without fail. How they stole the kitchen. Stay with me, because this next part will make your blood boil. In 1955, 1 year after rationing ended, the convenience food industry spent more on advertising in Scottish newspapers than the entire Scottish Agricultural Board spent in a decade. By 1963, Bird's Eye had 17 frozen breakfast products on British shelves. One campaign told Scottish housewives that making porridge from scratch was an unnecessary burden on a modern woman. Tradition was backwardness, convenience was progress. Within a single generation, the knowledge those women carried, the bros recipes, the crowdy making, the art of stretching a ham bone across 4 breakfasts, was gone. Not taken by poverty, taken by marketing. Their grandchildren can name every ingredient in a protein shake, they cannot make bros. Mealie pudding, sliced and fried. Mealie pudding, oatmeal, chopped onion and beef suet in a skin boiled until firm, was not eaten boiled by the drovers. Sliced cold, laid flat in a cast iron pan, fried in its own fat until the outside crisped. In Perthshire in the 1880s, a full mealie pudding cost 4p and fed 2 men for breakfast twice over. Scots butchers still make it. The art of frying it before dawn over a peat fire is what we've lost. My grandfather called it the honest man's breakfast. He was right. Oat cakes with salt herring. The herring trade made Scotland. Scottish women gutters followed the fleets from Wick to Yarmouth, packing barrels of salt herring that fed families from Aberdeen to Gdansk. A barrel of lock-fine salt herring cost 12 shillings in 1870 and lasted a household 3 months. Eaten on a hard oatcake with cold water, it was breakfast for fishermen's families across the northeast. The omega-3 oils in that herring would do more for your heart than any supplement sold today. Sowans. Sowans is what happens when you refuse to waste anything. After oatmeal is ground, the inner husks are soaked in water for days until they ferment slightly. The liquid is strained off and boiled until it thickens into a pale, sour porridge. In the Hebrides in the late 1700s, sowans was eaten 3 times a day during lean winters. A parish record from Argyll dated 1791 describes it as the principal food of the labouring poor from November to April. The knowledge of how to make it would save a life one day. Barley scones with dripping. Barley grew where wheat wouldn't, on the thin acid soils of the highland margins. Heavy and slightly bitter, but mixed with bicarbonate of soda and beef dripping, then baked flat on a griddle, it makes a dense scone that keeps 3 days without going stale. In Sutherland in the 1860s, women baked barley scones on Saturday evening so the men had breakfast ready for the drove on Monday morning, spread with dripping, maybe a smear of crowdy. That chain broke when the daughter grew up on sliced white. Flummery. Oatmeal soaked overnight in cold water, the milky liquid boiled slowly until it sets to a pale, trembling jelly. Cold, it slips from the bowl like blancmange. Sweetened with heather honey, it was breakfast for children and the elderly. Nutrition without effort. Flummery is in Scottish recipe collections as far back as the 1680s. By the 1950s it had vanished, replaced by tinned rice pudding. A quarter pound of oatmeal could feed 2 children at a cost of literally nothing if you ground your own grain. Poached egg on oatcake. Every croft kept hens, 6 or 8, but enough. An egg poached in hot water and laid on a warm, fat-spread oatcake was the best breakfast a drover could hope for before the drove road. In the 1890s, crofting families in Rossshire sold surplus eggs at 3 halfpence a dozen and kept the cracked ones for themselves. The oatcake was yesterday's, the dripping was last week's beef. Nothing from that table was wasted. Nothing. Neep brie with oatmeal. Turnip broth. The liquid left from boiling turnips with a mutton bone, thickened with oatmeal. 1 large turnip, a bare bone and 2 handfuls of oatmeal could feed a family of 4 at breakfast. When the harvest failed in 1782 and again in 1816, turnips kept Highland communities alive. By the 1920s, farmhands on the estates of Angus were still eating neat brie before the cattle work began. It tastes of the earth, of stone, of winter. Treacle bros. On the coldest January mornings, a tablespoon of black treacle stirred into hot water, oatmeal mixed in until it went thick, dark and bittersweet. The treacle provided iron and quick energy. The oatmeal gave slow fuel. A tin cost 3pence in the 1920s and lasted a household nearly a month. Farm labourers on the Moray Firth coast ate treacle bros before the 6 a.m. milking well into the 1940s. My grandfather, born in Aberdeenshire in 1903, ate it every winter morning of his childhood. He lived to 87. Porridge carried in a drawer. Scottish drovers made their weekly porridge, poured it into a drawer and let it set hard, then cut it into slices to carry on the road. The Scots magazine records this in 1746 and again in 1802. Each slice, roughly the size of a house brick, provided around 400 calories. A drover heading from Inverness to Crieff, nearly 80 miles, carried his week's breakfasts on his back. No fire required, no cooking stop. You ate while you walked. Blander, whey with oatmeal. The whey, left after making crowdy or butter, thinned with cold water, mixed with a handful of oatmeal and left overnight. That is blander, the morning meal of Lewis and Harris. The old statistical account of Scotland in 1791 records it as the ordinary breakfast of the common people on the Long Isle from May to October. The whey was free. The oatmeal was their staple. A complete morning meal from what would otherwise have been poured away. Not poverty, genius. Here's something that will stop you in your tracks. Nutrition researchers at Aberdeen University analysed traditional Scottish drover and croft breakfasts from documented menus between 1750 and 1900. What they found embarrassed the modern food industry. A standard drover's breakfast of brose, salt herring and cold buttermilk, 4pence in 1850 money, delivered more than 65% of a working man's daily protein requirement, over 80% of his fiber, and significant omega-3 fatty acids, iron and B vitamins. The same caloric intake from a modern supermarket breakfast delivered half the protein and a quarter of the fiber. Your grandmother's grandmother fed a working man at 5 in the morning, without a food pyramid, without a nutritionist, better than we feed ourselves today. She didn't know the word fiber, she just knew what kept a man on his feet. Scientists spent 80 years rediscovering what she already knew. Nettle bros. In late March, before any garden crop was ready, the first young nettles came up along the dike walls. Free, abundant, loaded with iron and vitamin C at the exact moment when winter stores were almost gone. Scalded, chopped, added to boiling water and thickened with oatmeal. In the Highlands and Islands in the 1700s and 1800s, nettles were the bridge between winter and spring. My grandfather's mother gathered them every March until the 1960s. Her granddaughter thinks they're a nuisance in the garden. Cranachan, drover's version. The cranachan in restaurants today, cream, whiskey, raspberries in a tall glass, is a polished descendant of something rougher. Toasted oatmeal, fresh crowdy, whatever wild fruit was available. Blaeberries in August, raspberries in the Angus Glens, no sugar, no cream. In Perthshire, in the 1850s, farm servants' records mention cranachan with blaeberries and crowdy as the standard harvest morning meal. Nobody monetised it, they just ate it and went to work. Limpet broth with oatmeal. On the Hebridean Islands, the morning tide brought breakfast. Limpets scraped from the rocks at low tide were boiled in seawater with dulse seaweed and thickened with oatmeal. The limpets gave protein, the seaweed gave iodine, vital in communities far from any other source. Cost, nothing but time and cold rock. Limpet broth is in travellers' accounts from the Outer Hebrides as early as 1695. By the 1960s it was the food of the very old only. The limpets are still there, still free, still on the same rocks. Stapag, oatmeal with cold cream. Raw oatmeal worked by hand into cold, fresh cream until it thickened to a paste. Made in the palm of the hand, the oatmeal sprinkled in and kneaded, eaten standing up before the cattle were moved to their morning pasture. A quarter pound of oatmeal and a gill of cream, less than a quarter pint, gave a working man a breakfast that would not be bettered until noon. I've never seen it on a restaurant menu. It exists now only in the accounts of those who interviewed the last people who remembered it. Cock-a-leekie porridge. Yesterday's chicken stock, strong and golden from the bones, brought to the boil with leeks sliced thin. Oatmeal stirred in until it thickened to a savoury porridge. Kept cold in a stone crock and reheated each morning for 2 or 3 days. In Lanarkshire and the Lothians in the 1870s, farm servants' diaries record stock porridge with leek as a regular morning meal on livestock farms. Savoury porridge is nothing new. We abandoned it in favour of sweetness and lost one of the best breakfasts the Scottish kitchen produced. Girdle scones with dripping and marmite. Marmite arrived in Scotland in the early 20th century and the working kitchen adopted it immediately. Tasted of beef stock, cost almost nothing, lasted months. Spread on a hot girdle scone with beef dripping underneath, it gave a savoury depth to breakfast for next to nothing. Farmhands in the borders ate marmite and dripping scones before the 5 a.m. cattle rounds. A jar cost 4p in 1935. The dripping pot was free. I ate this at my grandmother's table in Dumfriesshire in the 1970s. She called it a proper breakfast. She was right. Bear bannock with salt butter. Beer is Scotland's oldest grain, a 6-row barley grown in Orkney and Caithness for 5,000 years. It grows where nothing else will, on thin, wind-scoured soils of the far north. Beer bannock, coarser and nuttier than modern barley flour, is mixed with water, flattened by hand and cooked on the girdle. With salt butter made from the croft's own cream, it was the daily bread of Orkney farm workers from the Norse settlement onwards. Beer meal is still milled, just at the Barony Mill in Orkney, the last working beer meal mill in Scotland. If that mill closes, the bannock becomes impossible to make outside of someone's memory. Scadan salan, salt herring in oatmeal. A salt herring soaked overnight, patted dry, rolled in coarse oatmeal and fried in dripping until the outside is crunchy and golden and the flesh inside is soft and sweet. In Gaelic, scadan salan, eaten by working people on the west coast and islands from the 1600s to the present, barely. A barrel of salt herring cost 12 shillings in the 1880s and fed a family of 6 for a month. The flavour is extraordinary, deeply savoury, slightly smoky from the brine. I'm going to make this for you. Next video, I will show you exactly how. That is a promise. Before we get to number 1, I need you to picture someone. Somewhere in Scotland, on the Black Isle, or in the older streets of Stornoway, there is a woman of 81. She lives alone. Her children are in Glasgow and come up for Christmas. She knows how many breakfasts she can get from a single salt herring. She knows the nettles along the back fence come up in the 3rd week of March, and that the first tender leaves mixed with oatmeal are the best thing you can eat after a Scottish winter. Her grandchildren do not know how to make porridge from scratch. They think a bannock is something you order in a cafe. She has never written any of it down. Nobody asked. When she is gone, what she carries goes with her. Not because of poverty, not because of war, because of 60 years of being told that cooking from nothing was a sign of not having enough. What have we lost? Everything, and the clock is still running. Store'em, oat gruel with dripping. It looks like thin gruel, a tablespoon of oatmeal, a pint of boiling water, stirred until the starch releases and the liquid goes milky, then a teaspoon of beef dripping floated on the surface. Drunk from a bowl, standing up before the 5 a.m. muster. 4 minutes to make. In the Highland Estate Records of 1840, Store'em is listed as the standard pre-dawn drink for cattle hands in Perthshire and Stirlingshire. A pint delivers sustained warmth and slow carbohydrate energy, enough to face a February morning on Rannoch Moor. Your nan probably made a version of this and called it something else. Athol Bros, the drover's crown. And here we are. Number 1, the breakfast every drover knew. Cold spring water poured over raw oatmeal, left to stand for 10 minutes until the liquid turns cloudy with oat starch, then drained off, stirred with heather honey and drunk. The oat water, the bros water. On high days, a measure of whiskey. On the drove road, just the water and the honey. It is documented in Highland accounts from the 1600s onwards. The Earl of Athol is said to have captured his enemy in 1475 by filling a hollow in the road with Athol Bros. The man stopped to drink and was taken. That story tells you everything. It was irresistible enough that a soldier would stop in the middle of a battle to get at it. A drover heading from the Cairngorms to Falkirk, over 100 miles on foot, carried his oatmeal, his honey and his skin of cold water. Every morning, Athol Bros. Every morning, enough fuel to cover 20 miles before noon. I still make this. Cold water, oatmeal, a spoonful of heather honey. I think about the men who walked across Scotland drinking this in the dark, before I was born, before my grandfather was born, before anyone alive can remember. That is what number 1 is. Not the fanciest, not the most complicated, the most enduring, and perhaps, if you make it once, the most surprising. Because the moment that cold oat water and honey touches your lips on a winter morning, you will understand without anyone explaining it exactly why a Scottish drover walked 100 miles on the strength of it. So, which one did your grandmother make? Did she call it bros or gruel or something else entirely? Is there a breakfast from the Scottish kitchen we've missed? Something her mother made that nobody seems to remember? Tell us in the comments. That is where this knowledge stays alive now. This channel exists, so none of it disappears without a fight. If this video meant something to you, like it and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.